on Like It Should Be, you produced a lot of it, not all of it, but several tracks on there. So what did you find, or what do you find that you get as being a producer and a rapper? How do you think that helps you? And then when you do get a beat from a Domino, a A plus, or how does that change how you write? Do you think?
Oh man, for me, I feel like when you create the music yourself, like no one can really give it to you the way you want to express it. You know what I mean? I would assume it's the same for singers who write. You can get a song that you accept and then you give your rendition of that song. But when you write the song, it's coming from you. It's like for a person who cooks, I'm sure they eat food all day, but when you make it, you know exactly how you want it. So for me, making beats, I always had a vibe where I wanted it to be loved by hip hop heads, but I wanted it to be loved by people who didn't really care for hip hop. Just crossover without the negative connotation to crossover, but just a vibe. You know, I love the 70s sound. I love smooth sounds, strings. And so when I wrote it and built it from the ground up, it was always exciting. And then sometimes the process can take away from the excitement. It took you so long to make it. Now you're kind of worn out with it, as opposed to you getting a beat from somebody else and you say, ooh, you didn't hear it constructed. You're just hearing the final, product. So either way, that's my favorite part, listening, listening to and then immediately I hear the hook, what should be sung, what should be said, and then from around that I write the lyrics. So, but yeah, definitely making the sound gave the artist a chance and the listeners a chance to hear what I like personally. And they usually like those records. Go back to school, in front of the kids, first sermon, sweet potato pie. I definitely wasn't just one of those rappers who, you know, produced. I mean, I could produce. I had a certain sound that was mine, and people liked it.
Right. So with Brown Sugar, which was also a single and did well for the group, um, what effect, if any, since there's so much with your name with Snoop and Snoop Dogg, there's also D'Angelo, Brown Sugar, and all this stuff, which I was always like intrigued about, and not related to you guys, and obviously the other side too. It was just funny that Saphir had Jay-Z also. So it's just all these little name overlaps that were happening around the same time. Sweet Potato Pie with Domino, of course. So,
Right.
but Brown Sugar, for that song specifically, did D'Angelo's song of the same name have any effect, do you think, on getting your song out there or marketing, promoting it?
This is what I know. I know that Ali from Tribe was working with D'Angelo. And where Jive was, they were recording something in that studio in that same building. And he did ask us about our record, like when is it gonna drop, something like that. That's the only thing I know. I dropped mine first. Unfortunately, when I heard his record, I was blown away because it was one of the hardest R&B records that I had heard. I love R&B personally, but my problem with it, it had become rinky dink. We had gotten away from the acoustic 70s sounds. So when I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, the rebirth of Marvin Gaye. It was no way I could hate it. I loved the record. I bought the album, and it wasn't even like he was a one hit wonder. The whole album was like amazing. So I could just sit here and say, like, yeah, man, his Brown Sugar came after mine, but I'd have to give it to him. It was better. It was just I hadn't heard anything like it in a long time.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing because it's obviously his is an R&B song, yours is not. But I was always curious about that. I didn't know that Ali Shaheed Muhammad, the Jive Insider part of it, so that's
Yeah,
intriguing.
right.
But with that single, why do you think it before D'Angelo? But why do you think that this song resonated and caught on with people? It's one of my favorites, but it's not. I didn't look at it like it's so as a single. It's so much better than the album. I thought it was on par with basically the rest of the album. So
Yeah.
for you, what made you guys and Jive want to go with it as a single?
I think when we produced it, we were real excited about bringing the drums back from Houdini. Shout out, to Jalil, and rest in peace to Ecstasy. Bringing those drums back, we always said like, man, somebody need to bring those drums back from I'm a Ho. And so with that, then the bass line, when we did it, the record felt big. Looking back, I could see how there were better singles, there were probably better choices, but at the time it just felt real big and like something like, okay, yeah, this is a different angle we want to come in.
Well, to your point though, the I'm a Ho was used a few times, one or twice before you for sampling, but then of course when Ice Cube and Master P redid it later, that beat is incredible. And
right.
Houdini, we gotta, like you said, rest in peace to Ecstasy and shout out to Jalil and Grandmaster D. But
yes,
that song's incredible, which is one of the reasons I liked Brown Sugar. But so much of the rest of Like It Should Be, I was also a huge fan of. So with In Front of the Kids, of course, you shouted out E40 on there, and then that was on the Low Down Dirty Shame soundtrack and stuff. So did they ask you to submit songs, or did someone from Jive pick that? Like, what happened?
They asked me what song I wanted put on the soundtrack. And they were saying first, they asked me, do you want to put First Sermon on? I was like, nah, I don't think it goes with everything going on. It doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the album. So I can't remember why, but I chose that song to go on there, probably because I thought it was slept on or something like that. It would just be able to get a little more promotion. But they asked me to choose which song I wanted on there.
And then did you read the script or anything, or did they tell you about the movie, or you were just kind of shooting in the dark?
I think they gave me a summary of what it was about, and then from there I was like, okay, the lyrics kind of match up enough. Yeah. And I think they gave us the summary of what it was about.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I know some artists, they get to read the script before they even film the movie to do a song. Some people are like you, they just tell a little bit about, sometimes the movie's done and then they write the song after they watch the movie. It's just so many different ways it happens.
Right.
So I was just curious. Now, Casual gave you the Extra Prolific name, and on Cash Money, the song that you guys did together on Like It Should Be, that's one of my favorite songs because I think you guys, subject matter, tone-wise, play off each other so well, and I think A+ is a very underrated and phenomenal producer in my opinion. So for you, what made Cash Money the song that you wanted Casual on?
Man, Cash has always been I think he's always been, I would say, my favorite rapper out of the crew. I've always liked the big guy voices. You know what I mean? The fat guys, Biggie, Chub Rock, Heavy D. I've always liked how big rappers sound. They just got this vocal thing, man, that is amazing. So yeah, for that, I always liked his delivery, always liked his style. And so my thing at the time was like, man, I got to get, I need to work on my game so I could be up on par, because he was always a heavyweight on the microphone. Some acknowledge it, some don't, but he's always a heavyweight. And so at the time I was trying to get my MC skill up at the time, but yeah, it was a no-brainer, like one of my favorites.
Well, I think Fear Itself might be my favorite Jive release from the High Road Camp. That album is
solid from top to bottom.
It's phenomenal. Now, on Like It Should Be, Never Changing is maybe my favorite song, or one of my favorite songs, and that one is the most introspective, I would say, and kind of it's it's different than a lot of the rest of Like It Should Be. So when you, as a writer and as a producer, like going introspective and kind of taking a personal look or observational look at your life and what's going on around you on a more personal level, what does that come or feel differently for you?
Well, it was, one of those records where you look within. Like it was more about what we talked about at the top, which is where you coming from Houston, you're a certain way, and but you're trying to fit in Oakland. You know, you're wrestling with yourself. Do I give up my artistic integrity, everything that I was raised with, or do I just try to fit in? And so it was me wrestling between who I was and who I was trying to be, and then ultimately saying, "Man, I'm just gonna be who I'm gonna be. I'm never changing." It was one of those records, so it came from a real place. That's what I was really dealing with. And so made the beat, found like a Ramsey Lewis loop at the house, put some drums to it. Isaac Hayes drums from Joy that I always loved. My dad used to play, and it came out well.
Gotcha. And another one that came out really well, which was more on the smoother, pimpish side that I really liked, was the Go Back to School.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that one, I always find it interesting when there is a bunch of sonic diversity on an album, like I think you had on Like It Should Be. When the beat is more smooth, as it is on Go Back to School, do you find that, especially at that time, did that lead you more in the pimp direction or the pimpish theme?
Man, I don't know. I just know that I was more smooth, as far as like my vocals, the production that I liked, that resonated with me. But I was just trying to make sure I didn't put people to sleep, that I had a balance. But yeah, it was all about the ladies. I took to LL coming up, and what I learned, if you will, from LL was that, man, you can be a man's man and a ladies' man, and it be just as equally as effective. You know what I mean? You can use your voice in a smooth way on one record. You can yell on the next record. You can MC on one. You can sweet potato pie on one, and you can, you know what I mean? Give it up on the next. It just, however direction you let the track tell you how to come. And so I just, from my heart, whatever, when I hear something, I just give it, what I think the track needs. So not a whole lot of thought involved. It's more of a feeling.
Okay,
Yeah, more of a feeling like, yeah, okay, this is what I hear.
cool. And then I really enjoyed too the fat outro because a variety of things. One of which that you shouted out, your Houston roots and the artists there, and also all the West Coast, and made a point to shout out like the Rodney O and Joe Coolies, but then on the East Coast, the Organized Confusions, the Dante Rosses, the Curious George, and all this type of stuff. So um, that was in '94, I would say, kind of the end of that type of song of being a regular appearance on albums.
Right.
So what made you want to, since that was kind of falling out of popularity or regularness or normal, why was that something that you wanted to do?
I think, man, usually I was used to reading in the thanks, the people that inspired you, that you wanted to shout out, and that was cool. But I'm like, man, why don't I just say it at the end? Rap a little bit over a track that I really like, do a little hook, and then do something different. So it was just like, man, let me let these guys know. They inspired me. I looked up to them, shout them out, and let them hear it, as opposed to them maybe never reading it. So that was the idea at the time, trying to do something different.
So the album comes out, and I was always confused, and I remember reading and hearing different things, but what happened to where you didn't continue on Jive? Why did Mike G leave? What was going on?
What happened with Jive is that I was at the Low Down Dirty Shame party. It was like a party for the movie. And I was frustrated because they weren't really pushing my music. About a week before that, I was on a three-way call. Let you know how long this was. Three-way calls where I'm being quiet. My manager's talking to my product manager, and I'm just sitting there listening. And they're saying from Jive, they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't hear any singles. We don't think the record is gonna make it. Basically, they're not putting any more money into it." So I said, all right, man, when I get to this Jive, this Low Down Dirty Shame party, I'm just going to express myself. I probably had one too many to drink and at the time. And so I got on stage and I was freestyling And then I was doing my music. I say, y'all probably haven't heard this record because my label ain't pushed it. Then I started dissing the people, executives in the suits. I'm like, man, they don't even love the music. They here for money. Long story short, they cut the mic off on me, and they said, man, this dude is nuts. And the next day, the next day they dropped me, and so that was it with Jive. Um, but I wasn't the only one that got dropped. I just got dropped in because I said what was on my chest. Me and Mike G, we just grew apart. I can't even remember what it was. Me and Mike G. I mean, we still cordial. It's good. Um, but yeah, the Jive thing, man, it was just I was frustrated, man, because like Keith Murray, he had gotten signed right after me, and then he put out his single, "Boom, It Blows." And what I was looking at with Jive is it wasn't like the old Jive that back in the day with KRS, Steady B, Tribe Called Quest. They were getting these new numbers, these R. Kelly numbers, these high five numbers, Backstreet Boys and stuff. And so with rap, it wasn't as important. So they were putting it out. If the song took off by itself, then they would push it. But they wouldn't just give it that immediate push from the jump. And so it was frustrating me to see that this hip hop label was becoming like, I don't know, some R&B label.